The council meeting of April 5th, 2022 will now please come to order. The audience is invited to join council in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard.
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Glassburn.
Here.
Ms. Heeman.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Limpert.
Present.
Mr. Scarl.
Present.
Ms. Williamson.
Here.
The following legislation is considered for suspension of the rules this evening. On second reading, Resolution 2022-25, and on first reading, Resolutions 2022-29 and 2022-30. Reports. Mayor Daley Jones, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that council is pretty tired of hearing my voice this evening, having just spoke to you quite a few times, so I'll keep this report quick. Just wanted to give council an update. We had a Shred It Day this past Saturday at the North Olmsted Recreation Center. 389 cars and one bike went through, which is approximately 100 more cars and one more bike than we had last year. So we're looking forward to holding another Shred It Day in the fall. And thank you for helping to get the word out to the residents about that service. This Saturday, as I mentioned last week, is the Egg Stravaganza, which will be at the North Olmsted Community Park. We're happy to bring that back after having not been able to have that event for our community and our children in our community for quite a few years. So 10 a.m. at the North Olmsted Park. Hope to see you there. And finally, just a reminder that there are 2 more fish fries that we are going to be holding at Springvale for the fish fry season, and that will be this Friday, and then next Friday will be the last one. So if you haven't had an opportunity to order your takeout from Springvale, you have 2 more opportunities to do that. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. The Egg Extravaganza sounds very exciting. Appreciate that.
It will be exciting. Thank
Couldn't
you.
resist.
Excellent.
Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you. I do have, I'm pleased to report that in the matter of Kelly Patrick versus Daniel Caceres in the Northern District of Ohio Eastern Division, a lawsuit had been commenced back in June of 2021 against a number of individuals, but with respect to North Olmsted, it was initiated against myself, my prosecutor Michael Gordillo, and Detective Fiorito. It was a matter that just covered a very wide range of topics, none of which we believe to be accurate or true. We denied the facts and denied any liability from it. I'm pleased to announce that the court agreed, and the court has granted a motion for judgment on the pleadings, and as it concerns us 3, the City of North Olmsted employees, the matter has been dismissed. So she's maybe taking an appeal on it, I don't know. We previously had litigation over a substantially similar matter concerning public records. She was alleging public records were destroyed or concealed. We were successful in defending that as well. So I hope that this ends this particular issue or controversy, whatever it is that she has with the City of North Olmsted. I hope it ends it. So that's our desire. But just want to bring you up to date on that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. In the absence of Director Coffer, is there a report for her this evening?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving into Council Committee reports, Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn, Chairman of the Finance Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do, Mr. President. Thank you. The Streets and Transportation Committee held a meeting today, April the 5th at 7:31 PM. Present were all of council, the mayor, law director, finance director, HR director, economic director, safety director, service director, and guests. We discussed 2022-25, a resolution authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids for rock salt for roadway ice and snow removal for use by the city of North Olmsted as detailed in specifications on file, and further authorizing the mayor, after approval by the Board of Control, to enter into contract with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency. Director Carney said that this would normally have gone through or come to council in January, but because there hadn't been a service director at that time, it didn't make it to us till now. And the purchase is for the price for salt as needed throughout the year. And this should have been brought to us, as I said, in January, and there's a concern about the prices. So they want to get this through, and ask for suspension, and the committee ended at 7:34 PM.
Thank you. Councilman Scarl, Chairman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President, but ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Of course.
Thank you. Due to my absent last week on March 29th, and under council rules, I'd like to speak on behalf of 2022-17 and 2022-18 to set the record that on both those issues, my vote would have been yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. As Chair of the Committee of the Whole, we had a meeting this evening beginning at 7 p.m. Present were all of council, the mayor, Directors Garreau, Upton, Schofield, Kidd, Carney, and guests. The subject was a presentation by the mayor and her administration regarding their ARPA funding, which will be discussed in detail during an upcoming Finance Committee meeting. The meeting concluded at 7:24 p.m. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. So we'll move into audience participation. Thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium, state your name and complete address for the clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Marge Bartek. My address is 31063 Lily Lane in Cinnamon Woods. Oh, do I start all over? My name is Marge Bartek.
There you go.
My name is Marge Bartek. My address is 31063 Lily Lane in Cinnamon Woods, which is in North Olmsted. In January, I emailed the mayor about a situation concerning the rubbish pickup. And because I never received an answer, I sent her a letter. And again, I never received an answer. So I'm wondering why I never received an answer.
Sure. Mr. President?
Mayor.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Bartek, we have been working with your homeowners association, and they assured my administration that they were communicating to the residents of your development, Cinnamon Woods, that information was getting back to you. So I apologize that that did not happen.
Well, it's been 3 months, and we still haven't heard anything. And meanwhile, the rates went up for Republic. And what is being done about that? Well, first of all, why, when I moved into Cinnamon Woods about 14 years ago, we didn't even have to pay for rubbish pickup. But then when Mayor Kennedy found out, he put into law that we should. So of course, we couldn't do anything about it despite the meetings we had with him. So now I'm intervening to you that maybe we could get the rubbish pickup again without a charge. And if we cannot, then maybe we could get our taxes reduced, because fair is fair.
Mr. President?
Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Bartek, I have been meeting frequently with the administration, with the law director, with our service director, with my special assistant, and with the homeowners associations that we're working with to see what we can come up with the current contract that we are in with Republic. That contract is until 2024. And so unfortunately, we're locked into that contract, and that's what's taking so long, is we are trying to figure out legally what we can do with the contract and how to also assist the homeowners who are living in developments such as Cinnamon Woods. So we've met more and talked to Republic Services more than any administration before us, I can guarantee you that. And we are working diligently to try and come up with a solution for you.
How long is this going to take?
I don't know, Mr. President.
Mayor, please.
I don't know that we
This could
can.
take all year, right?
Hopefully not, but it might, yes. I mean, we're
It
dealing
might.
with a
Why would it
large
take all
contract.
year? I mean, I don't want to be arguing, but first of all, why cannot, the situation started out as a verbal contract, and why can't we still not go by that verbal contract? That we don't have to pay for rubbish pickup. I mean, $20 is a lot of money. $20 a month. Why cannot we still maintain the verbal contract?
Mr. President?
Yeah, please continue, Mayor.
Thank you. It is because we as the city have a binding contract with this organization, and within that contract, the developments such as yours, they're not included in that contract. And so
We were.
Mr.
Law
President?
Director, sure.
Thank you. I believe, going back historically, I think as I recall the situation, Ms. Bartek, that it was, you were receiving services that were not permitted by the code. It wasn't the contract, it was that the city's own code did not allow you to receive those services, and I believe that the prior administration, when they determined that you, excuse me, that your association, excuse me, was receiving services, that were not authorized by law, that's when they discontinued those services. That's my recollection as to what happened. I don't know that there was if there was a verbal agreement with somebody that was inconsistent with the law, then that verbal agreement wouldn't be capable of surviving that, because.
What is the law? I mean, why aren't we considered a part of the city? We pay taxes, we vote,
The law as it presently exists is that we pick up trash on the dedicated right-of-way. For any resident within a dedicated right-of-way, so that if the trash cans are on the dedicated right-of-way, they can be retrieved.
Okay.
That is the case as it currently is written.
What is your definition of a dedicated street?
It's a dedicated street. I could provide to you the names of all the dedicated streets. If we talk to the city engineer, they're built to specification. They're not private streets. There are a number of private streets in North Olmsted, including within your subdivision, where we don't roll trash trucks. We don't roll, there may not be certain services provided. There may not be, we don't go onto private property to conduct certain services. That's the way the code has been written.
A dedicated street is a street that is used for public use. Our streets have cars and trucks going up and down all the time.
I understand.
Now, I would consider that a public street, not a, which is a dedicated street.
There's a
An
legal process for
undedicated
dedication
street.
of streets.
Ms. Bartek, can I make a suggestion? We allow for 5 minutes. I can ask if there's a motion on the floor by council to allow you more time to speak, but I would suggest that perhaps you give your contact information directly to the mayor's special assistant, and he and/or the mayor will follow up with you probably tomorrow would be my best guess, and we can
Okay,
get the
well, when I
vote.
wrote a letter, it was never answered, so.
That, I understand. This is probably the best way to proceed, in my opinion, or we can allow you more time to talk. But I
Okay.
really think,
Okay, one more question.
go ahead.
Did you have to pay for services on February the 3rd that we never received due to a snowstorm? We had to pay. Did you have to pay?
Mr. President?
Mayor.
Yes, we did. So did all the other cities.
Why would we pay for services that we never received?
I can tell you contractually, the trash was picked up eventually. It wasn't picked up, well, I understand, ma'am, but I don't want to argue with you on that issue. I'm just saying that the trash, instead of being picked up on Thursday, there was a double load of trash picked up the following week. That's how Republic would see things. It's not as though the trash was never picked up. The trash was eventually picked up. It was simply at a delayed period of time. And thus, given the weather and given the conditions, they would be within their rights to say that they were going to delay trash pickup.
Will that work for you, Ms. Bartek? If we
That to me was a poor answer, but, so when will they follow up with me?
So please give your contact information to Service Director Carney,
Okay,
the gentleman raising his hand, and then I'm quite certain they'll follow up with you tomorrow.
okay.
Thank you.
Jeff Sturgeon, 3092 West 231. I think, from what I'm hearing, that the lady before me, I don't think she understands that that is a private street. And I think that maybe she just doesn't understand it's a private street. I can tell you the fire hydrants, the city, our fire department doesn't even flush them out anymore. I started flushing the fire hydrants out and getting paid from Cinnamon Woods. And that was probably 8-9 years ago I started doing that for them. So, I mean, it's just not a public street. And I think that she's not understanding.
Correct.
One thing I did want to say is congrats on the new sewer truck that we have, the Vector truck. I was lucky enough to get my eyes on it, and it was like, wow. Wow, money well spent and pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, seeing no other comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading, Resolution 2022-21, introduced by Mayor Jones and Councilwoman Heeman, a resolution extending the temporary outdoor patio dining area program until April 30th, 2023, and declaring an emergency as amended.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lippert.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-21 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-21 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Mr. Glassbern,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Resolution 2022-21 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-22, introduced by Mayor Jones and Councilwoman Heeman, a resolution establishing a policy to allow for temporary places of business in the city of North Olmsted and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-22 as for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-22 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Glassbern,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Resolution 2022-22 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-23, introduced by Mayor Jones and Councilwoman Heeman, a resolution extending the policy for temporary signs in non-residential districts in the city of North Olmsted and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-23 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-23 made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Glassbern,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Resolution 2022-23 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Legislation on second reading. Resolution 2022-25, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids for rock salt for roadway ice and snow removal for use by the city of North Olmsted as detailed in specifications on file, and further authorizing the mayor, after approval by the Board of Control, to enter into contract with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I'd like to ask for suspension of the rules requiring a third reading, and this was discussed in a formal committee, and it's time sensitive. It should have been brought forward in January if we'd had a service director at that time. I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2022-25 made by Councilman Kelly and seconded by Councilman Glassbern. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Glassbern,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
The motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2022-25, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
seeing none, I move to adopt 2022-25 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-25 made by Councilman Kelly and seconded by Councilman Glassbern. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Glassbern,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Resolution 2022-25 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Legislation on first reading. Ordinance 2022-26, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance creating new section 1139.13 entitled Phased Development of Chapter 1139 of the Planning and Zoning Code and the codified ordinances of the City of North Olmsted entitled Business Districts for the purpose of authorizing phased development plans in North Olmsted business districts.
Mr. President, I
Yeah.
introduce and place on first reading.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2022-27, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance amending and reestablishing Chapter 141.99 of the Administrative Code entitled Composition and Organization of the Department of Public Service in order to update the organizational chart for the Department of Public Service.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-28, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept the donation of exercise equipment from Dick's Sporting Goods valued at $5,151.38 to be located at the North Olmsted Police Station for use by the North Olmsted Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-29, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase a Ford F-550 utility truck from Valley Ford Truck at a state purchase price of $80,617, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I request suspension of the rules of 3 readings and formal committee review for 2022-29, as this order has to be in by tomorrow.
I'll second that.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2022-29 made by Councilman Kelly, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2022-29, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
seeing no one, I request, move to pass 2022-29 and ask for a second.
Second.
A motion to adopt Resolution 2022-29 made by Councilman Kelly and seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-29 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-30, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase two Ford F-550 dump trucks from Valley Ford Truck at a state purchase price of $164,192, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I move for suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings and formal review, as this one also has to be, the order has to be in by tomorrow to get that state price. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2022-30 made by Councilman Kelly and seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes, with comment, this also was just approved as part of our budget last week, so it's another reason why it was submitted with a day's notice. Thank you.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2022-30, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
seeing no one, I move to adopt 2022-30 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-30 made by Councilman Kelly and seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-30 is adopted by a vote of 7-0. Moving into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. Councilwoman Williamson for Public Safety, Health, and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I'd like to schedule a meeting for 7 PM to discuss Resolution 2022-28, and I would ask the mayor or her designee be present.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn for Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to schedule a Finance Committee meeting at 7:05 on the same evening to discuss 2022-27 as well as the ARPA budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn into executive session to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider the purchase of property for public purposes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn into executive session made by Councilwoman Williamson and seconded by Councilman Lippert. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Glassberg?
I'll abstain.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Council, that motion is approved by a vote of 6-0 with one abstention, and council will adjourn into executive session at 8:32 PM.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I was like.
Yeah, that's your cell. Okay. Yep, I will. Yep, thanks, Jim. Thank you.
We have time, she's like reading, but.
Okay.
It's like serving dual sentences.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, and that's why I was.
Just to let everyone know who's still here, you're welcome to stay while they're in executive session. But when they come back, it'll just be adjourned. There won't be any further voting or anything. It's up to you to stay or leave.
I was here at 20.